or appear to think that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. Now, I know, Mark, you're going to have your own thoughts to this, so I want to hear your thoughts to it. Three-time MVP. He's three-time MVP champion, okay? Mm-hmm. To Peyton Manning's 5. Besides the 6 championships that Tom Brady has won that Peyton Manning hasn't, Peyton Manning has probably every single statistic, every single award that Tom Brady doesn't have. Okay, so 14-time Pro Bowler to 14-time Pro Bowler. So they're both 14-time, but Peyton Manning did it in a quicker fashion. He was a 14-time Pro Bowler in a shorter career than Tom Brady. Okay, so you have to look at those things. Peyton Manning's career was cut short. He hasn't played in 5 years. Tom Brady has played for the last 5 years.
Last year he was terrible, so that doesn't really count towards anything.
I mean, seriously. So what makes you think, Mark Kelly, that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback to ever play the game?
Okay, I wrote an article that's on
Reddit.
Okay, and it not only compares Tom Brady to the greatest football players ever, the greatest quarterbacks, but the greatest athletes of all time. And I look at this because I'm a sports historian, a statistician. My bias doesn't matter here. Am I a Tom Brady fan? I've been a Jet fan. Tom Brady's broken my heart more than anybody, probably other than Michael Jordan. All right. So what I did was I took, his consistency over the years and how many guys have been able to produce consistently and still produce in his 40s in all of sports like Brady has. So because I can't access the article or I can't access any statistics, if you want to get into Belichick, why I think Brady helps Belichick more than the opposite, we can get into that in a little bit. But as far as overall, winning percentage, Tom Brady is 100 points higher than anybody else in the NFL.
That has a lot to do with the team. It has a lot to do with coach.
Okay.
And playing in the AFC.
In the AFC East, which is the worst division in football.
You guys can counter it after.
I'm just giving you my thought to it.
So he's played for every year since 2002. The only time he missed starts was when he got hurt in 2009 and when he had the suspension in one of the other years.
2016.
Yeah. Okay. If you look at him playing, he's very rarely gets hurt. If he never gets hurt. Okay. The Patriots, when he came in that year, were 0-2, and they were about to, 0-1, or about to be. They lost to the Bengals the first game. The next game, then they had 9-11, and they played the Jets. So, and they were 5-11 or 6-10 the year before in Belichick's first year, because this is Belichick's second year with the Patriots. And then when Bledsoe got out, Brady came in. I mean, his first game was at the Colts. He won that game. Nobody ever heard of this guy. Nobody ever thought he was going to be anything. He went to Michigan, but he was a backup in Michigan until his senior year. So if you look at overall numbers from when he came into the league, he's better. He actually got better in his late 30s and early 40s than he was his first couple seasons. Now, if you want to make the argument that it's geared to a quarterback now, where in the 80s it wasn't. Marino didn't have to deal with you can't touch the quarterback. God forbid any little thing goes wrong and they'll call a penalty. Marino didn't. He played in a much rougher era. Montana played in a much rougher era where you didn't have the number of pass interference. You basically can't touch any of these wide receivers anymore. Back then, especially before they changed the rules in 1978 with bump and run coverage, where you could basically tackle the guy in his route. You couldn't do that in 78. That's why quarterbacks really, the statistics jumped from 78 on, because they had the 5-yard rule. You couldn't touch them within that. So I think that Brady, because he's been consistent from the start of his career all the way up till now, he's 43? Nobody in the NFL history has been able to put up any type of numbers in their 40s. Very rarely playing, yeah.
How old is Drew Brees right now?
39.
30, yeah. We'll see how Drew Brees does when he gets to be 40. I mean,
he's going to retire after this year.
Okay, well then he won't do it.
He doesn't have to, because he's got every single. He's
got passing.
He's got touchdowns. He's got touchdowns. He's got passing yards. Right. He's got a better completion percentage.
Touchdown to interceptions.
He's played less games.
Touchdown to interceptions.
What happened?
Touchdowns to interceptions.
Again, he doesn't play in the AFC East.
Yeah, but you can't always.
Yes,
use
you
it.
can. Yes, you can.
You can't.
The AFC East is
Because
the easiest division in football.
Brady's played with how many different guys? How many different teams?
And what does Drew Brees play
The
with?
Saints receivers weren't great either.
What is
and
Drew
Marcus
Brees?
Colston, it was nice.
Give me a
That was
break.
it. That was it.
Give me a break.
How many times did Brady play with like really good guys? Even when he didn't win.
Right, but how many times has Breeze done that too? The
Tom
Saints
Brady was
receiving
under
cores
the
are not
same
great
coach.
either.
Tom Brady was under the same coach.
And so is Brees.
No, he wasn't.
But with the Saints, he's been.
Yeah,
with the Saints,
yes, but
And
he
then the
wasn't with the
Chargers
same
he
coach
was.
his whole career.
The Chargers, he was.
No, yes,
It was
but
Schottenheimer.
he was under two coaches. Tom Brady has been under the same coach, which
Mm-hmm.
arguably the greatest coach of all time. Some people will argue the greatest coach of all time.
Okay, so let's take that. Okay, so obviously Belichick had won one playoff game before Brady got there. That was against the Patriots when he was a coach of the Browns. So Brady gets there, and Belichick had stops in Cleveland, and then his first year in New England where they were 6-10 or 5-11. Okay, and then Brady comes in. If Bledsoe would have stayed as quarterback, Belichick might have been fired after that year because with Bledsoe they wouldn't have been very good that year.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
They
Mark.
lost
You
to
ever
the
hear that saying?
Bengals. They lost to the Bengals that first game in 2001. All right, and Brady comes in, and all of a sudden they have a renaissance, and now they're doing things that they didn't do before. Believe me, when I was working at ESPN, I tried to come up with any number possible to deny his significance because I hated the fact.
Yeah,
that
but you're looking at the significant numbers right now. I just came up with some numbers that Drew Brees playing in less games has a better completion percentage, more yards by 3,000 more yards than Tom Brady.
Okay,
he has more touchdowns.
So you look at different things then, because he's geared. That's a passing offense, no doubt. Okay, I mean, Brees has thrown for 5,000 yards. Wait, 6 times, 5 times. No other quarterback's done it more than once. So Brees is in an offense where you definitely pass the ball more than Brady does. So I think Brees has a lot more attempts than Brady
A lot
does.
of Tom Brady's yards were short passes that were gained by the wide receivers.
At first it was.
Yeah, no.
But then
Wes Welker, look at Edelman, all of those guys. They've always had those guys on those teams. Every single branch. He was another one.
He's gotten a lot better at throwing the deep ball than he did when he first came in.
But that has nothing to do with it. A lot of his yards came from corners. I mean, not corners. Running backs that were catching the ball in the backfield, running an extra 10, 15, 20 yards. And Tom Brady was getting credit for it. Yes, it is true.
He's made a lot.
Yes, it is true.
Brady can pass the ball down the field just as good as anybody.
That has nothing to do with what I'm saying. If you look at his numbers and you look at statistics, statistics will show you that Tom Brady has been known for getting short passes and getting more yards through the short passes because of the scheme.
Show me that.
Because of the scheme.
Show me that.
I can't bring it up right now because we didn't know we were going to talk about it.
But you can do yards per reception. Yeah, net yards. You can do stuff like that. And then we'll look at how they compare to each other.
How could you honestly sit here and tell me when I brought up Drew Brees' numbers in a lesser time has better numbers all around
doesn't have better numbers.
Yes,
he
has
more passing yards.
No, he has better numbers.
He doesn't have.
He has better numbers. The only
you go
thing,
touchdown to interception differential. Brady's better.
Again, Tom Brady plays in the AFC East.
Doesn't matter.
Yes, it does. The AFC. Oh my God! Are you crazy?
So
look at the AFC teams Tom Brady had to go through. The Baltimore Ravens and
Manning
the Broncos and the Broncos.
Ravens,
that's it.
Ravens
that's it. That's all he had to go through. He didn't have to go against the Buffalo Bills because they've always sucked. He didn't have to go against the Jets because they always sucked.
That I will
They had Miami Dolphins. They always sucked.
Very weak
Those
division.
are 6 wins. Those are 6 wins right there that he completely dominated. If you look at his numbers against those teams by itself, they're ridiculous. He's gaining at least 1,200 yards off of those teams.
So why didn't the Patriots win before he got there?
What do you mean? Why did the Patriots win?
Why did they dominate like they did?
They did win.
Patriots made.
They did win.
They didn't. But Patriots didn't win a Super Bowl before that.
It doesn't matter. They still won with Bill Parcells. They still went to the Super Bowl.
But they didn't win. Yeah, they didn't have 9 Super Bowls with him.
Again,
no other quarterbacks been close to that.
Again,
but then you can't just say,
the AFC was a lot better. The AFC was a lot better when Bill Parcells.
That's a cop out.
No, it's not a cop out. Why is it? No, it's not.
It's not because
it's not a cop out.
Yeah, he played with Peyton Manning in his.
The AFC was was better in the 90s than they were in the 2000 era. Absolutely were. Go look at the AFC in those
Then why
times.
did the Buffalo Bills make it?
Well, Buffalo Bills went
Why did they make
back-to-back.
it 4 straight years?
Why did they make? They were a
And
good
then
team.
then get blown out.
It doesn't matter. They were a good team. They lost against the Cowboys
Look
a
at the
couple
teams.
of times.
Look at the teams they played.
They lost against the Giants.
But in the AFC, look at the teams they played in the championship games those years. Miami in '92 and '91, a weak Bronco team.
You're going to tell me, Mark? You're going to
sit
sit here. Mark, you're going to sit here and tell me right now. If you look at the AFC in the '90s and look at the AFC anywhere from 2000 all the way to now, that the AFC wasn't as stronger in the '90s than they were in the 2000s.
I'm making the argument right now. I'm
What's
not
the argument?
telling you. I'm making it right now.
Well, your arguments are terrible so far.
Well, how?
Because
Look at the teams that
Speedey,
came
do
through.
me a favor. Look at the
teams
AFC.
I will
Look at the
tell
AFC.
you.
Look at the-
You don't have to look it up. I'll tell you.
You can tell me all you want. So you're telling me the AFC?
In 95, the Chargers made the Super Bowl. Okay? How good were the Chargers? 49-26, they lost to the 49ers. Okay?
What does that mean?
That means that the AFC wasn't that great in the 90s. You can't say it was better in the 90s.
The AFC
You
was
can't say
much better
in the 90s.
It was much better in the 90s
All right,
than they were in
so
the
again,
2000s.
I'll give you actual teams that made the Super Bowl, and then you tell me why that's true.
Okay.
So the Chargers in 95, were they a great team?
They were a good team.
They were, okay, a great team. We're talking about great teams. There were a lot of good teams.
Okay, how many great teams were in the AFC in the 2000 era?
Okay, the Colts were a great team.
Oh, really? They
Every
couldn't play
year.
defense. They couldn't play defense. They couldn't play defense. The
Colts,
they
look
they
at
weren't
every
a good
year they were
defensive
13
team.
and 3,
They were never a
14
good
and
team.
2.
They beat Rex
All right,
Grossman in the Super Bowl. Okay,
Yeah.
Rex Grossman.
But again, that's
sexy
the
Rexy.
NFC.
Okay,
Yeah, but that just proved
All
my
right, Rex
point.
your point to what?
Because that's
the
an
AFC was
NFC
weak.
team. That's not an AFC team. Grossman was in the NFC.
It doesn't matter. The AFC
That was one of
weak.
the best defenses in the league.
Yeah, the AFC was
But
weak.
I'm not. We're talking about the AFC.
All right, the Baltimore Ravens. They were good for a couple of. They had
They
their
won the
spurts.
Super Bowl.
They were good in spurts. They were good. They were for 3
Well,
years. They were good. Then for the 2 years, they were all right.
I mean,
they
they've been
weren't great.
consistently
They weren't
good.
great. The Broncos and the Baltimore Ravens were the only consistent teams in the AFC in the 2000 era. They were the only consistent teams. Don't tell me
Who were the consistent teams in the 90s? The Steelers. You wouldn't put the Steelers in there. Steelers won 2 Super Bowls in the
I would say
2000s.
that the Steelers are always a consistent.
Right, but the
team.
Steelers also always get destroyed by the Patriots.
Why?
Why? Because they've been
Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick.
So Bill
Steelers-
Belichick beat the Patriots before.
What
I
happened?
mean, did Bill Belichick beat the Steelers before?
many times.
He did with the Browns. Okay, maybe
I
you want to go back and look at those games.
I think probably split with the with the Steelers. 'Cause
Yeah, maybe you want to go back and look at
Because
those.
they
games.
had-
But
they
that
needed a
has
playoff
nothing to
there.
do with anything.
So let's
We're
talk
talking
about
about when he's a head
So
coach.
let's talk about the Super Bowls that they played in. All right. So if everybody thinks that Belichick is just God,
He is.
Okay. So the first Super Bowl they played in against the Rams, whose defense allowed the game-tying touchdown?
Doesn't
in
matter.
under
They
2
cheated,
minutes?
so it doesn't
Okay,
even matter.
So the next year,
They cheated.
Who's
They cheated.
Hold on.
Two
Whose
years-
defense allowed
2
17
years later,
points
2
to a
years
lethal
later.
offense?
And by the way, that year they went to the
they
Super Bowl
allowed-
against Jake Delhomme. Jake
they
Delhomme
allowed-
had a better game than Tom Brady did.
No, he didn't.
Yes,
Delhomme
he
was
did.
a good playoff
Yes, he
player.
did.
No, he didn't.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
Go look at their numbers.
So I
Go look at
have.
their numbers.
I have.
Okay.
All right. So again, in that Super Bowl, whose defense
what
allowed
Super
the
Bowl
game?
was that, Speedy?
That was Super Bowl
38.
38. So who's? No, that was 39.
No,
Yeah,
39 was against the
Yeah,
Eagles.
38. Yeah, okay. So 38. So again, whose defense allowed the game-tying touchdown with under 2 minutes left in that Super Bowl?
I don't know, Mark. You
Okay.
tell me.
So Brady came back and he led to the game-winning field goal in both of those Super Bowls. So he took over and made a game-winning drive in both of those Super Bowls. Okay. So let's go to Super Bowl against the Seahawks. Who's down 10 points in the fourth quarter?
I don't know.
Brady.
Who only
up,
scored
go
ahead.
14 points through
So
three
again-
quarters? I mean,
No, but they're down 10 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, how many points do you want them to score in a Super Bowl? I mean, you can't score 50 points every
no,
game.
score 27.
All right. So
That's
you're
probably-
telling
What
me
about
you're
Belichick
telling
against
me-
the Eagles?
You're telling me.
What about the Eagles game?
You're telling
The
me that
Eagles
Tom
game.
Brady had a better game than Jake Delhomme. Okay, so let's just go look
Jake
at the
Delhomme.
Let
You
Jake
really
Delhomme-
want to have that
Yes,
argument.
He had a better game than
Jake
Tom Brady.
Delhomme than Tom Brady.
He had a better
You
game
really
than Tom
want to
Brady.
make that
In the
argument.
Super Bowl,
Go ahead.
Super Bowl 39,
Go ahead.
16 for 33, 323 yards, 3
Okay.
touchdowns, no interceptions, 113.6 passing rating.
Okay.
To Tom Brady's 32 for 48, 354 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception, 100.5.
Okay.
Who had a better game?
3-1.
Who had a better game? Who had a better game, Mr. Statistic?
Who won?
Mr. Statistician? It doesn't matter.
You can't say better.
Cheated. They cheated.
Okay, yeah. No,
they cheated.
Look.
They cheated.
But
they cheated.
That's Belichick.
So Jake Delhomme had a better game than Tom Brady.
I would say
he did.
You could
Numbers show that he did.
You could bring up
Numbers show Jake
right.
Delhomme had a better game than Tom Brady.
He didn't have a better game.
He did.
No,
he did. Stats show you that he did.
How are we talking?
Stats show you.
Brady threw for more yards.
He had a better passing rating.
But he threw for more yards.
What, 30 more yards? 30 more yards, and he had one interception.
Yeah, but
to Jake Delhomme's none. Zero. A goose egg. Goose egg.
You can't say that was a great better game. It wasn't. They were equal games.
You're on drugs.
Nobody said significantly better.
No, he was better.
No, it's not.
He was better.
Okay, but he lost the game.
He didn't lose the game. The team lost the game.
Why did
they scored 32? They allowed 32 points. The Panthers' defense is the bigger problem. Not Jake Delhomme
because of a field goal kick.
No, but again,
by Vinny Testaverde.
Adam
Vinatieri.
Yeah,
Adam Vinatieri. I'm sorry, Adam Vinatieri.
So if you want to make the argument that Belichick's defense is so great, why did they allow 29 points to a team that was an average offensive team during the regular season? The Carolina Panthers. So go to the Super Bowl.
Your arguments, it's fine. You told me.
How is that bad arguments? You just don't like them. I'm bringing up very valid points.
Well, you're not bringing up valid points.
Okay.
You just told me that Jake Delhomme had a better game than Tom Brady.
I'm saying that they had similar games.
Tom Brady had a better game than Jake Delhomme. He didn't.
Games.
He can't
say, Delhomme had
he didn't. He had a better game.
No, he didn't.
He had a better game. Numbers show that he did. Rating, everything.
No better game. Okay, so that means that Brady threw for 354 yards and 3 touchdowns. Didn't have a good game.
I never said that he didn't have a good game.
Well, then what are you comparing? Better games don't mean anything.
What I'm comparing
if you have a good game, you have a good game.
Tom Brady.
He had a great game.
Who did Tom Brady?
That's it.
Who did Tom Brady?
He had a great game in the Super Bowl.
Who did Tom Brady have to go through to get to the Super Bowl?
Against
who did Tom Brady have to
go against? Who did
Tom Brady? Who did Tom Brady?
How many points did they allow against the Eagles?
You're not answering my question. Who did Tom Brady have to go through to get to the Super Bowl that year, buddy?
They had to get through in 2003.
Yeah, let's hear it.
They beat the Colts.
Colts. Okay. The Colts.
Well, Peyton Manning, you just said he was the greatest quarterback ever.
Yeah, Tom Brady and the same Peyton Manning that was hurt in that series, right?
No, he wasn't hurt.
And it was hurt that
year.
It was in the snow, wasn't it? It was in the snow.
But he wasn't hurt. He threw 3 interceptions in that game.
Listen, and who's that had a lot to do with Bill Belichick. That had a lot to do with Bill Belichick and his scheme.
Belichick's defense allowed 14 points.
Okay, but Belichick did well against Brady.
You're on drugs. Okay, look, you really are.
You can't say I'm making good points because you disagree with them.
No, because you're lost. You told me that Tom Brady had a better game in the Super Bowl.
I said that Tom Brady had a great game. Better games mean nothing. He had a great game.
That had nothing to do with Tom Brady.
Sure it did. He threw for 354 yards.
He threw for
that wasn't a good game.
That 323.
What moron says it wasn't a good game when you threw for 354 yards
into the mic
because
I can't even hear myself speak. By the way, you screaming in the mic. Here's the problem. What you're saying when you said that Jake Delhomme didn't have such a great game, you were wrong. You were wrong. You were wrong.
He didn't have a better game.
Speaking. I'm going to mute you right now because I'm going to speak. I want to speak because you've been speaking and talking over me. You told me that Jake Delhomme did not have a better game than Tom Brady. You looked at the numbers. You are completely wrong about that. That's one. One question wrong. Then you tell me over here.
That matters.
It had nothing to do with Bill Belichick. Meanwhile, Bill Belichick shut down Peyton Manning. Get 4 interceptions. You said it yourself. It was Bill Belichick. It wasn't Tom Brady. Tom Brady didn't intercept the ball.
The Super Bowl.
Come on, man. You're
Super Bowl.
You're lost.
The week before, he also shut down
the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl. How many times? I'm sorry, Speedy. The Super Bowl.
I was going to say the week before they beat the Colts, they also shut down the Titans offense with a co-MVP in Steve McNair, Eddie George, which was a very good offensive team, 17-14. That was a defensive game.
I'm not saying Belichick doesn't have a great defensive mind. He obviously does. What I'm saying is that in those Super Bowls, they allowed the game-tying touchdown.
And what does that have anything to do with Tom Brady being the greatest quarterback of all time?
Because when you allow the game-tying touchdown with under 2 minutes,
still doesn't answer the question.
When you have to get one stop to win the Super Bowl, his defensive teams didn't. Against the Eagles, they allowed over 50 points against the Eagles.
Still doesn't answer the question.
Belichick's great.
That defense had
they
no
were down
pass
28-3 against
the
Falcons, and Brady came back to win.
Still doesn't answer the question. 6 championships. That's what makes him. That makes him the greatest quarterback of all time. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. Because
you can't have an argument with somebody who says every point you bring up is not valid.
No,
because very valid.
Because you told me it all canceled out when you told me Jake Delhomme didn't have a better game.
Oh, please.
He did. He had a better game. He had a better game.
Jake Delhomme had a better game than Tom Brady.
He had a better playoff than Tom Brady.
I can bring up playoff games where people had better games than Peyton Manning. That doesn't mean that they're better than them.
That's not saying much. Peyton Manning was a terrible playoff quarterback.
But that had nothing to do with what our conversation is. My conversation here is compare and contrast. How could you honestly say that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time?
Very easily.
No, it's not very easy. Because he doesn't have the best numbers. He doesn't have the best numbers.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
No, if you look at the games that he's
most passing yards, but he has the greatest touchdown interception differential.
And why does he have that?
He has the greatest winning percentage
by over
100 points.
Because he's playing in the AFC and he's under the greatest coach of all time.
So if
that's
he's the greatest coach of all time.
That's right. Greatest football coach of all time.
But Brady had a lot to do with that. And we'll see now.
Him and Lombardi. You can argue your points. Him and Lombardi. But
we'll see how he does without him. I'm curious to see how he does without him.
I'm going to tell you what he's going to do. He's going to do absolutely nothing because he's going to be in the NFC where he's never been in the NFC.
No, I'm talking about Belichick.
Belichick will be fine. Belichick will be fine. Belichick will be fine.
Brady there.
Belichick will win 8 games this year with a backup quarterback.
Cam Newton's not a bad quarterback. He should win with Cam Newton.
Really?
If he's this great system.
Are you looking at the team right now? Because they lost 9 guys, but 2 of their starting offensive linemen.
There's always an excuse.
There's no excuse.
He's this great quarterback. So look, Brady's got to win now. I mean, he's older.
He's not going to win.
He's older.
He's not
like he was when he was in his 30s.
He's not going to win in the NFC.
But
he's in a harder division in the NFC where it's completely different than the AFC. And it's going to show all the fans why Tom Brady was so dominant in the time that he was so dominant because he's been in the weak AFC East and he won 6 games almost every single year in that division.
But he's what part of what made the AFC East.
Really?
Do you think Bledsoe didn't dominate like that in the AFC?
So you're telling me right now
Bledsoe didn't dominate like that with the Patriots?
Hold on.
Nobody did.
I'm starting.
A big reason why is because they dominated. They dominated because of Brady.
Tom Brady is everybody's savior. He is the AFC savior. He is the reason why the AFC is where it is today. Is that what you're saying?
He's been to 9 Super Bowls.
He's been to 9 Super Bowls.
They made every single championship
game. Team. Football is the team sport. It's not Tom Brady. Who runs those teams? What is the most important position in professional football? It's not quarterback. It's coaching. Coaching.
So again,
who is the coach?
Go back
Bill Belichick.
Go back to the Super Bowls. Okay? So against the Falcons, they're down 28-3 because of Belichick's great defensive mind. Mm-hmm. Who comes back and wins that game? Okay, so against the Eagles, he allows...
In what scheme?
How many points? How many points?
Who's calling the plays? It wasn't Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning was calling the line. He was calling all the lines of the line of scrimmage.
We're not talking about Peyton Manning.
I know. I'm just saying. Tom Brady wasn't calling the plays.
Yes, he does. Brady called...
No, he wasn't. No, he wasn't.
Okay,
no, he wasn't.
Brady calls all of the games.
Really?
He calls all the plays.
Oh, he calls all the plays.
Yes.
Oh, he makes all the calls. So he does. He's telling the offensive coordinator this is what he's calling.
Read.
Okay.
He does.
Okay.
This is the first offense that Brady's going to be in where he hasn't run it.
Are you crazy? Have you lost your mind?
I'm telling you that. Read about it.
I've read about it. I've never heard that before in my entire life.
Of course it has. No. Brady runs the offense.
Tom Brady
calls
was not
audibles,
calling,
but he doesn't call audibles
he
to the same level.
He wasn't calling the plays at the line. The audibles.
How can I argue when you disagree with the fact?
Because it's your fact. I've never heard that. It's your fact.
Look it up.
I will look it up.
What do you think? I got here by accident?
No, well, I know you haven't gotten here by accident, but for you to say that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time, you might have been in an accident a couple of times.
I give you point after point after point.
No, and I'm giving you points too, and I've told you.
But we just went through the Super Bowls. You don't have anything to say to that. Against the Seahawks, they're down 10 points in the fourth quarter. Brady leads them back to win. Against the Falcons, down 28-3. Against the Eagles, they allowed how many yards? Most yards in
Edelman's
Super Bowl
unbelievable.
history.
Edelman's unbelievable catch and the interceptions.
Oh, come on, one play.
How about Dante Hightower?
One play that should have led to fourth down.
How about Dante Hightower?
I can't argue.
How about Dante Hightower?
I can't argue with
stupidity. How about Dante Hightower?
Okay, defensive players should make big plays. That helps getting him the ball back.
It's everything.
But when he gets the ball back, you got to score.
How about Adam Vinatieri kicking all those field goals?
Guys, I can't argue when you bring up.
You're right. You can't argue because you're wrong.
No, because it's stupidity.
It's not stupidity.
You can't say a defensive player made a play so that takes away from the quarterback's greatness.
So we're sitting here right now, and we're
arguing.
Yeah, you're
right. Dante Howard, he slipped. Great defensive play. So that doesn't mean that Brady comes back from 28-3.
How about the bad play calling by Kyle Shanahan
and the defense?
guys,
How about that? How about that? Is that Tom
How
Brady?
about-
Did Tom Brady make those calls?
Did Tom Brady
Did he tell Kyle Shanahan to do what he needed to do?
Errol,
That's
stupid.
Come on. No, it's not stupid.
Yeah, defensive players are supposed to make plays.
It's the coach, guys. Don't you get it? It's the coach. Bill Belichick. That's why they won that game against Atlanta Falcons. That's the facts.
Yeah. Oh,
that's the facts.
Right. They're down 28-3 because of Belichick.
Yes.
Right. Stupid. Against the Eagles, how many yards? The most yards in the history of the Super Bowl.
How many yards did they get?
The most yards in the history of the Super Bowl.
How many yards did they get in the fourth quarter? How many yards did they get in the fourth quarter?
The most history of the Super Bowl.
In the fourth quarter. In the fourth quarter.
Against the Eagles. They allow to a backup quarterback.
I'm not talking about the Eagles. I'm talking about this. How many yards?
Of course you wouldn't talk about it.
How many yards?
Because it goes against your argument.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it does.
I'll get into that. Don't trust me.
You allow 50 points to the Eagles, a backup quarterback. That doesn't make you the greatest defensive coach. He has had bad games that Brady has had to save him from.
Where was their
when he allowed the game-tying touchdown?
Where was their defense ranked against Philadelphia? Mr. I know everything. Come on. Where were they ranked?
I don't know everything.
I'm just average defense.
They were an average defense. They
lacked pass rush.
And the year after, what did they do? What did they do?
Why were they an average defense?
No, after Philadelphia.
If this guy is
after Philadelphia. Okay, what did they do? Well, they went after our corner, didn't they? Mm-hmm. Didn't they? And they added the great quarterback.
No, they had him on that team.
So the only way that
he didn't play in that.
So the only way that
he did. He was one of the only ones that played well.
All right. So the only way that you can be a great defensive coach is if you have great defensive players.
Defense wins championships.
Right, but you have to have great defensive players to be a great
offensive
coach.
line keeps the quarterback on his feet. Unlike the gift, what the gift says.
But answer my question. If you have an average defense, your defensive coordinator or your coach should be the difference in getting you from good to great. Mm-hmm. So if you have great defensive players, you need a scheme, but you don't need as many as you do with average defensive players.
Yeah, but was that defensive
So if
team
you have an
good,
average defensive, there have been years that the Patriots have had very few good defensive players. Mm-hmm. All right, where they've been weaker. I mean, they allow a lot of passing yards. There have been plenty of years where the Patriots defense has been bad.
Who had to go through harder teams, Drew Brees or Tom Brady, to go to the Super Bowl?
Probably Brees.
Probably. Come on, be
NFC
honest
is
here.
more parity.
Be honest. Be honest here.
Okay, well, let's
be honest here.
Okay, we'll go year by year. Okay, so in 2011, they had to go through the 49ers. They lost in one of the great games of all time. And, you can't blame Brees for that. That was a great game. And the Niners just pulled it out. Okay? But if the Saints would have played the Giants in that championship game,
they would have
the Saints would have went to the Super Bowl.
And by the way, just so you know,
it depends on matchups.
Peyton Manning has a winning record against Tom Brady in the playoffs.
Yeah, they played, what? It's 3-2?
3-2. 5 times.
3-2. 5 times.
And he's 3-2 against Tom Brady. So the great Tom Brady couldn't beat Peyton Manning in the big game.
5 times. I mean,
Peyton Manning's playoff problems weren't really those games. It was all the bad teams that they should have beaten easily and lost.
I didn't say that. Peyton Manning lost to the Steelers in the postseason. He lost to the Chargers and Billy Bolick.
Chargers.
Yeah.
He got
shut out by the Jets.
The offense was run through him. He was calling the plays. He was calling the plays at the line of scrimmage.
But they also lost a lot of low-scoring games.
If you're comparing Brady and Manning,
I'm not comparing them.
They're very close.
I'm not comparing them.
They're both great.
I don't think Peyton Manning's the greatest quarterback of all time, and I don't think Tom Brady is.
But Brady has
I don't think Drew Brees is either.
He has a high, but his winning percentage has stayed the same no matter what players he's with, no matter what teams he's going against. I mean,
same coach.
But there have been years where
same division.
Okay, but you don't play with the same guys. If you win consistently with different teams,
the division is terrible. Man, come on. Go look at those Jet teams.
Yeah, definitely you're right. You're absolutely right.
I mean, look at the Jet teams. Look at the coaches the Jets have had over the years. Look at the coaches the Buffalo Bills have had over the years. Look at Miami. Look how bad they are. Those are 6.
The most dysfunctional team in
just think
football.
about it. Just think about it.
But
if we look at numbers,
Patriots would have been.
Let's see. Average out. Tom Brady. He plays the Dolphins. Okay, he plays Dolphins twice a year, right?
Yeah, and the Dolphins are the ones that are.
All right, hold on. He plays the Jets twice a year. He plays the Buffalo Bills twice a year. So let's say he averages between 300 and 330 yards a game. Mm-hmm. Okay, what's 330 times 6? Okay, let's do. I just want to know. I just want to know because I want to see.
1980.
19. So almost 2,000 of probably 4,300 yards every single season comes from one division.
But
one division.
A lot of those games are blowouts, so he's not throwing
one division. I'm just saying one division. So you're getting 2,000 yards in one division. How many touchdowns? Probably 15, 14. So out of the 30, 35 touchdowns that he is averaging a year, it's coming from his own division.
Right.
So how is Tom Brady the greatest quarterback of all time?
2008, when Brady doesn't play, who won the division?
Miami.
Okay. Well, I mean.
Yeah, but the Patriots were still 11-5. They missed the playoffs on a tiebreaker.
Yeah, but they didn't win the division. I mean, you could make up, but this happened and that happened and that happened. Is it by coincidence that they didn't win the division? Like,
why were they even competitive?
If Brady was there that year, they won. I mean, they won a division every year he played except for 2002.
What I'm trying to argue here is not the fact that Tom Brady isn't a great quarterback and one of the greatest of all time. My argument here is Tom Brady isn't the greatest. And anybody that thinks that Tom Brady is the greatest, knowing when you see guys like Joe Montana, who's never lost in the playoffs. Never lost in a Super Bowl. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
never lost in a Super Bowl. And you say that same thing with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan never lost in the finals. Never.
Right.
He never lost in the finals.
Right.
So when you try to compare and contrast Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Bill Russell, whoever you want to compare to Michael Jordan, nobody can compare to Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan never lost in the finals.
Right.
So the same thing with Joe Montana. Did Tom Brady lose in the Super Bowl? Yes, he did.
Yeah. Well, you go to 9.
Did Peyton Manning lose in the Super Bowl? Yes, he did. Did Drew Brees lose in the Super Bowl? Yes, he did. So no, I'm sorry. He only been in one Super Bowl. He's only been to one Super Bowl.
Parity of the NFC.
So again. My argument here is even at a time where there's so many great quarterbacks, and I can even argue that Aaron Rodgers is better than all three of them. So
he didn't have the longevity.
No, he doesn't have the longevity. Yeah. But if you look at numbers and you compare and contrast numbers to all three of those guys, they're very similar.
But there are things there are a lot of different things you make about greatness, okay? And one of them is the ability
to win championships.
No. Well, yes, and he's won more.
Well,
but to be consistently,
that has to do with the team. Football is the biggest team sport.
But it's not a coincidence that they didn't win before he got there and they won once he got there. So then the second thing is consistency.
I'm not saying Tom Brady isn't great.
So consistency throughout the year. So how well has he been since he came into the league? Is he consistent every year? He has had the same winning percentage in his 20s, his 30s, and his 40s. Mm-hmm. That goes beyond what anybody else has
to do with the division that he's in.
He's won 11 more playoff games than anybody else in NFL history.
Mark, that's six games. These
are numbers.
Every year that he wins, practically. But he wins at least 5 to 6 of those games every year. So if the Jets had to listen, if the Jets had Tom Brady and they won 5 or 6 games, they would have won 5, 6 Super Bowls.
Then why, when he wasn't there in 2008, why didn't they win a division?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Why didn't they win a division?
Who?
The Patriots in 2008 when he didn't play.
They were 11-5.
Okay, but they didn't win the division.
Okay,
you could say
they were 11-5
with
Matt
that.
Castles.
Okay, so with Brady,
who, by the way, went to Kansas City, did nothing.
What do you think they would have done with Brady? They would have won the division.
Okay.
Easily.
Sure.
Easily. I don't know about easily.
They were undefeated the year before.
All right, so Brady gives them what, 2
And what happened then?
Yeah,
they lost in the Super Bowl.
They would have been 13-3.
And they lost in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But that's not comparing Tom Brady
and
Belichick.
9
That's comparing Tom Brady and Matt Castle.
They lost in the Super Bowl because who gave up the game to go-ahead touchdown? What defense? What great, unbelievable defense allowed Eli to go down the field?
It was David
Twice.
Tyree.
Twice.
What offense only scored 14 points?
Twice he allowed it to go down. Twice. No, but here's my point about that. Okay? When you're a great defense, you have to make stops when the game is on the line. You got to make stops. If you would have made stops in either of those Super Bowls, they win.
Okay, there's a difference between a good defense and a clutch defense.
No, but
Anthony Carragher.
Anthony
Carragher says you can't give Brady credit when he makes the Super Bowl because it's a team game, but say he can't be the best because he lost. Can't have it both ways. That's what he wrote.
He lost 3 times out of 9.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and
he also has the greatest coach of all time.
No, but yours. Okay, so I counter that
in the easiest division in all of professional sports.
I counter that with when you have a great defense, or when you have a defense that the game is on the line. If you make a stop to win, and he didn't do it against the Rams. He didn't do it against the Panthers. Didn't do it against the Giants twice. Against the Seahawks, they allowed the Seahawks to go ahead. The
Seahawks were a much better team that year.
Well, actually, the defense made a play in that Super Bowl, so that I'll give them credit for because that play by the cornerback was one of the greatest I've ever seen. Okay, then against the Eagles, they allow how many yards? So And then against the Falcons, they come out and they get,
Anthony says he's arguing against me, but if you're arguing against me, Anthony, it doesn't make any sense. You're obviously not listening to the whole topic here, because that is not the argument we have. I'm saying that Tom Brady isn't the greatest quarterback of all time. You want the number? Yeah, you could call the number 631-965-4990. You could call the number.
Mark, here's the other thing.
You're more than welcome to call the number, and I'll have more than the ability to argue with you, because
but you know what? Like the other thing is, guys, I might get passionate, and I don't mean to get over.
Nah, I'm fine.
Yeah,
You almost blew my ears out.
I don't mean to get over.
Yeah, it's all right. It's all right. You almost blew my ear out.
Errol and Speedey, they're like brothers to me.
Dude, I'm not mad at you. Listen, you have every right to argue your own points, but my argument here is Tom Brady, and you could call my number. We'll put you on 631-965-4990. And we will put you through. We'll put you through, and you can argue your points. I'm saying Tom Brady isn't the greatest quarterback of all time. And the reason why I'm saying Tom Brady is not the greatest quarterback of all time is because he's played in the AFC East his whole career in a division that's probably the worst division in professional sports, in any sport. You go up and down from basketball, even the Knicks in that division over the years with the Nets and the Knicks and the Philadelphia 76ers. This is the worst division in professional sports. And he wins 5 or 6 of those games every single year for the last 15 years. So you tell me, if you have home field advantage every single playoff, don't you think you have the credit and the ability to win and go to the Super Bowl every single year? You do, because you skip you skip the first round. You don't have to play in the first round. You have to play in the semifinals, and then you go to the AFC Championship.
You got to be good enough to do it, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's what we'll do.
But if you get 5 or 6 wins there, I mean, that's a lot.
Here's what we'll do, Errol. The
Jets win about 6-7 games every single year.
I know. How about this? You make your 10 strongest points. I'll make my 10 strongest points. Then we'll go, and then we'll just leave it at that. All right.
Well, I'm still waiting for Anthony Carragher to call up, because to me, Anthony Carragher could call up the show and he could make it as a point. Oh, we got him.
There he is.
All right, put him on. Anthony, what's going on, man?
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on, man? What do you want to talk about? Obviously, the Tom Brady thing.
Obviously, I hate Tom Brady, but real recognize real, and I see greatness. I got to point out at greatness. So I tuned in about who's the greatest of all time and yada yada yada. So what I'm hearing, and I feel like the argument collapses on itself. So you're saying Tom Brady cannot be the greatest of all time because he's lost. That's why you can't beat Jordan, because Jordan never lost a championship. You can't beat, you said Joe Montana, because Montana never lost a championship. So we can't be the greatest of all time.
No, I'm saying Tom Brady's not the greatest. I'm not saying first of all, I'm saying Tom Brady's not the greatest of all time because he's not. That's pretty much what I'm saying.
But what you're saying is, you just said, you can't even put him in the argument of being the greatest of all time.
No, you can't.
But then when Mark says, well, he's been to 9 Super Bowls, you say, well, that doesn't matter because the team did.
LeBron James has been to 8 straight championships. Is he compared to Michael Jordan? Anybody think that he's compared to Michael? Anybody that knows basketball could compare LeBron James to Michael Jordan?
And it's a very similar boat, too. Weak AFC, weak Eastern Conference.
Nobody would compare LeBron James to Michael Jordan. Nobody.
I'm not comparing the LeBron James.
I'm just saying, he's been to 8 straight championships. 8 straight championships, Anthony.
Nobody else could have done that. James did that exclusively because he was really good.
So is Tom Brady, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But you can't compare Tom Brady to Michael Jordan.
I didn't compare Tom Brady to Michael Jordan.
I'm just saying you can't, even if you wanted to, you couldn't, because it's 1, 2 different sports, and B, and 2, Jordan can play defense. Tom Brady can't go grab the off the bag and go play defense. But regardless,
basketball is not a team sport. It's a single sport. That's what it is. Football is a team sport. It's the main team sport.
Exactly. Basketball is a team sport. I can agree with that. It's a single sport. I can agree with that.
Yes, it is.
But my thing is, to you, when you say, well, he can't be the greatest because he's lost. Drew Brees never lost. Aaron Rodgers never lost. Joe Montana never.
That's not why. That's not why I'm saying that. I never said that.
We were saying that because of the parity.
No,
of the
I'm just
NFC.
talking about the parity of the NFC. I'm not saying that. No, that's the just because Drew Brees never lost in the Super Bowl. That doesn't. I'm not saying that. That's the reason why Tom Brady isn't the greatest quarterback of all time. So that's not what I'm saying.
You can also make the argument too that throughout the early 2000s, when Tom Brady was doing Tom Brady things in the AFC, he had to go against the probably, if Tom Brady's 1A of this generation in quarterback, then Peyton Manning's probably 1B. Mm-hmm. And he had to go against Peyton Manning almost every time to make it to the Super Bowl.
And he has a losing record against Peyton Manning in the playoffs.
But the NFC, I agree with Speedey, has a lot of parity. That's why there's always a different team there every year.
Mm-hmm. The AFC was here's the reason why Tom Brady isn't the greatest quarterback of all time. He's played in the easiest division in professional sports, and if you look at Tom Brady and what he's done over the years, if you look at the Patriots, every single year they're the number 1 or number 2 seed, so they always skip that first game where it gives them the opportunity to play at home all the way through the playoffs, all the way to the Super Bowl. That to me is an advantage by itself in the AFC.
You're making your own argument.
What do you mean?
Here,
How am I making my own argument?
A big reason why quarterbacks or coaches get fired is because they don't consistently win. So, on one hand, you can't say, well, Rodgers or Brees or these other quarterbacks, they've had changes. Well, you get changes when you don't consistently win. A big reason why Brady, there's been no changes is because they've consistently won. And I think you consistently
that has to do with
win.
the scheme.
Right,
but everybody's got a scheme.
Packers.
Everybody's got a scheme. So if
really, I'm still trying to figure out the Jets.
But you're absolutely right.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Which coach?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But let's just say in a twisted universe that Belichick would have stayed with the Jets, okay, and then they would have drafted Brady, which is what he wanted. I still wouldn't think that he's the greatest quarterback of all time. What one number I like to bring out with comparing Brady and the Jets is that if you go back to 1989, take all the Jets quarterbacks and the touchdowns they've thrown, they have not thrown as many or won as many games since 1989 than Brady has in his career.
I'm not going to argue that the Jets stink.
But that's
they're in a terrible division.
Right.
But the Jets are the Patriots are in the worst division in professional sports. It gives them 5 to 6 wins, which gives them an advantage every single year. It'll give them an advantage this year, even with the Bills being. Some people are saying, well, a lot of people have said the Bills are the team to beat, which I think is ridiculous. The team to beat right now still is the Patriots. Until proven otherwise, they're the team to beat.
All right. So I'll just make these last couple points.
Go ahead.
So to me, you distinguish greatness by consistency over time. Brady has been there have been no changes because they've consistently won. You can say that's got a lot to do with Belichick. I think that you have coaches that have different quarterbacks come in and they don't consistently win. But when you have someone like Brady, you can consistently win. Number 2, he's had consistent numbers, the same winning percentage in his 20s, 30s, and 40s. The same differential from touchdowns to interceptions is actually better now than it was when he was in his 20s. He throws for more average yards per season in his 40s than he did in his 20s. Okay? He's been to 10 straight AFC championship games. They've won the division.
Well, we know why that is. We just said it.
They've won the division every year except for one where he was the starter. That was 2002 when they went 9-7. Okay, and that's a large number of years. He's won with different wide receivers. He's thrown touchdowns to something like 80-something different wide receivers in a postseason. That's amazing. Okay, he has 11 more postseason wins than anybody else that weren't his teammate. He has more fourth quarter comebacks, like 10 more fourth quarter comebacks in the playoffs than anybody else.
No, Aaron Rodgers does.
No.
That's yours. No. That's yours, man. Anthony, you have anything to say before we go to break?
No, I mean, I just had to chime in when I heard, that one thing he said about, he can't be the greatest in the world.
No, I didn't compare. I just want to let you know, if you were listening to, and you can listen to the segment later after the show. I did not say, and I did not compare and contrast because Tom Brady, Michael Jordan never lost in the never lost in the finals, and Tom Brady has, trying to compare and contrast both players because of greatness. That's not what I was trying to do. What I'm trying to say is, if you go back and you look at some of the quarterbacks of the 70s, the 60s, and even the 80s, They were quarterbacks. Dan Marino. If you look at Dan Marino's numbers, right, in the 80s and the early 90s, and you compare and contrast the quarterbacks to this day, if Dan Marino played in this time, he would be completely dominant in every single category.
I think if Dan Marino plays today, he would be the greatest ever.
He is the greatest ever. If you look at his numbers, 61,000 yards, 200 and some. I don't have his numbers right now. Hold on.
But they were insane.